Good evening. I'm Jasmine, and thank you for watching Once and Often. Joining me today is Mr. Corey Quinn, another amazing adoptee who has decided that he wouldn't mind sharing his adoption story with me today. Hi, Corey. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Corey. From one adoptee to another, I just want to ask, so we can get right into it. How old were you when you found out you were adopted?
Well, I kind of always knew because um basically it's kind of a big deal to my adoptive parents because well, first let me start from the beginning. The very first memory of my life was in a foster home, and I was in the kitchen, and unfortunately, I was being abused by a foster woman just for peeing my diaper, and it's a shame that that was my first memory of life. And then if I had to guess what age I was, it might be unbelievable, but like just before one, and it's weird. Certain traumatic things you remember, but
Yeah.
then after that, my memory goes in and out, in and out, and then I was finally adopted by the Quinns, and I was 2 when I was adopted. So basically, I always knew I was different, and
Mm.
yeah, I always knew I was different. I've never really felt like I was a part of something, which was kind of a shame. So they never really had to tell me I was adopted. You know, I always knew that. So I imagine how rough it is for people to have to learn that they're adopted. I couldn't relate. That's got to be really, really tough.
Yep.
And I certainly hope parents don't just rip off the band-aid. I hope they tenderly tell people because that's got to be
Yeah.
devastating. Um,
It is it I can only imagine it being devastating. I mean, when my mom sat me down, it was a very tender conversation, even though I had already known. But, she didn't just rip the band-aid off. She told me in the most caring way
good.
that
Yeah.
an adoptive mom should tell their children.
Well, yeah, because my parents were my adopted parents are Irish Catholic, and sometimes they can be blunt, and times they mean well, but they weren't necessarily as tender as maybe they should have been, and for like different issues. And when we were talking before you started recording, I found it interesting you were talking about. I just lost it. Um, um, well, I'll come back to that. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't be nervous. We're
well,
fine.
so
We're
so
just talking.
yep. So I always knew I was adopted, and for a little bit, my adopted parents fostered other children, white and black and stuff like that. And long story short, they ended up adopting me because I felt there was probably a connection between me and my adopted mother, and I was adopted, and then uh, we were invited to the Oprah Winfrey show because what happened after I was adopted, the state ended up taking me away from the home for
Mm.
reasons of, I guess they said like a black child should be with a black home. And so the state, as traumatic as it was, the state removed me from the home multiple times. And
What state was this?
Michigan, Michigan. When I say the state, what is it? The adopt. What is it? Yeah, the state, the social workers and stuff like that. Can't
Hmm.
think of the direct name of it right now, but the people were responsible for like placing wards of the
Yeah.
court in different homes.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so they took me away from the home multiple times. That was very traumatic. And my adoptive parents ended up having to sue the state so that I can be placed permanently in their home and formally adopted. So I guess at that time I wasn't formally adopted, so they kept taking me away. So they sued the state. I got placed in the home. They won the case. The case went to federal court, and it was in newspapers and stuff like that. So yeah, it was. I guess it was a big deal for adoptees. I don't know. That's what my adopted parents tell me. So yeah,
I
yeah.
I want to take a moment for us to just sit in that because you just said so many things.
I know.
It's the first of all, first of all, The thing about the adoption laws is that they vary from state to state,
Sure,
as we know.
sure.
But I don't understand why they would. I mean, now that you said that they were Irish Catholic, it's a given. I understand why you always knew you were adopted. But the fact that they would allow an Irish Catholic couple to foster and adopt an African American child and then remove the child from the home, the, they don't think about the trauma that the child will experience. How in God's name will you allow this couple to foster and then later adopt? And so that so badly to the point where this couple actually had to go to court, which then went on to federal court so that they can regain custody of you.
Sure.
That is insane to me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was a very what's the word I want to use? Very very vulnerable child because I was before I was fostered by the Quinns. I was left in foster homes to where I was malnourished, and I was so weak. I could barely lift my arms. I was basically starved, left in the kind of like a child pen, and I was actually moved 3 to 4 foster homes before I even got to the Quinns. So that was you could only imagine how traumatizing that was. So
I can only imagine, but go ahead.
oh yeah, so that was a special case. So I guess what you said makes a lot of sense. Like, why would they take me from the home? I'd have to research more into it. I'm basically just telling you what my adoptive parents told me, but yeah, they said that a black child should be with a black home, and so they took me away from the home multiple times. A lot of that actually being taken away from the home, I guess my brain kind of blocked it out because that's what kind of the brain kind of deals with trauma, and I can't
Yeah.
really remember that part. But yeah, they tell me that it was extremely traumatic for me, and it still affects me till today. And you can possibly still find the court case if you look on Google, but you have to look like a long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you look, Judge, I think his name was Judge DiMaggio, and it was a
Okay.
federal case, court case, and yeah.
I'm pretty good at finding old stuff, so
Oh, oh yeah.
so that wouldn't be a problem. Let me ask you a
Sure.
question. When the statement was said that black children should be with black families, do you agree with that?
Yeah. All right. I, I, hmm. I feel I need 5 hours with you because I want to get into segments of my life. You know, like when you write a book, there's like different chapters.
Yes, of course.
I'm gonna try and give it to you as best as I can. Now,
Okay.
as an adult, my brutal honesty, based on my experience, I think black children should be with black families if it can be helped. If it can be helped, you know. Um, of course, if there's no black families to take the child, you shouldn't leave the child to languish in, foster homes and foster care. But I think that if the biological parents, next of kin or whatever, if they can take the child, I think that's what should happen. That's what that's where they should look, before they consider going outside the race. Because as well-meaning as people are, culture does play a significant role in the development of the child.
Thank you. That is a huge factor
Yes.
when it comes to raising a child. That cultural difference
Yes.
is it's big. You know, thankfully I am a same race adoptee, but you know, for some, I've spoken to a young man, Kanu, a couple of months ago, who not only was a mixed race adoptee, but he was also taken from his homeland in Sierra Leone, and he calls it unethical when you talk about mixed race adoptions. And you know, and I always kind of want to get the perspective of adoptees like yourself who grew up in a mixed race family. So, were there any other children outside of yourself in the home?
Um, my adoptive parents they actually adopted 2 other children, but they were both white, and their natural children obviously were white, and I was the only black child in the whole home, only black child in the whole community, only black child in the church, all white school. I was the only black child for miles. it's
Wow.
it's changed now, but yeah. So basically, I was the diversity, and
Right.
the troubling part about that is, as you know, you cannot discount culture because culture is behavior, and that's ingrained in our DNA, and it has a lot to do with our psychology, how we connect with people, how we build relationships, how we deal with different things. And if we're just going to discount that behavior and try and take someone else's behavior, I think that causes a lot of problems, no matter how well-meaning the adoptive parents are.
That is a significant factor
Yes,
in adoption.
yes, yes. And what I think my adoptive parents could have done better. Now, I would have wished that they could have adopted another black child so I could grow up with. But things happen, and I guess. But what they could have done is maybe taken an interest in black culture, learn a little bit about. You don't have to wear like a black beret, and you don't have to be marching with the Panthers and stuff like that. But just yeah, you don't have to do that. I would have loved it, but you don't have to do that. Just
Yeah.
just act like you have an interest in it, and they did not. Um,
Mm.
it was all Irish culture. I learned everything about their culture. I feel like I went 100% of the way, and they didn't even go not even 30% of the way. And that kind of builds a complex. So it makes me think, well, I guess my culture's not good enough. Well, there must be something wrong with me. I should stay away from my culture, and I shouldn't ask about my biological parents or my ancestors. And I really just shouldn't bother them because I'm grateful and I'm blessed. The mind programming. I'm grateful and
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
Yep.
If I tell you that a million times, then you start spouting it.
2 million.
Yes. So,
Really?
but the tough part is it takes adulthood to break a lot of that. I had to physically reverse the whitewashing. I had to um, listen to black speeches, read black books. I had to just I had to undo everything that was done. I stopped going to the church because I didn't see any black people on the stained glass walls. I remember that very vividly. I'm like, why are there no black people on the stained glass walls? And I started to become conscious, and then I went way conscious, and it seemed like my adoptive family started separating themselves from me. Not because I did anything to hurt them. I felt like that I was doing something taboo by trying to figure out who I was. I should just be grateful with the blessings that I was given. But
Yeah.
but no human being can just be here and just be grateful. You have to know where you come from. You got to know your medical
Exactly.
history, and
Absolutely.
you have to know why do I have trust issues and stuff like that. And why do I have all these issues here? So yeah.
It's, it's amazing that you said that because all of that is it weighs heavy on an
Oh
adoptee,
yes,
especially when you don't know who you are,
exactly.
and then you are living a culture that is completely different from your own. How do you think learning about who you are and Black people and cultures and things like that, how do you think that changed you before it changed the relationship with your family?
It okay. I'm ashamed to say this. At first, I hated being black. I hated black
Mm,
everything because it's in my mind, since they weren't acknowledging it, black was must be bad.
mm,
Since they don't talk about it, since they, it must be bad if they don't talk about it, they don't acknowledge it. And just the kind of way of a child's mind works. And then I had to break myself of that. So, but as soon as I started learning about all the beautiful things about black culture, it was like a light switch. It was like, okay, I'm somebody. I'm
yeah,
really somebody, and there's more to the story. And then you get hungry. Then I feed some more. And then you start feasting and devouring, and you start learning more and more. I started learning Kiswahili. I'm an Africana studies major. Studies Pan Africanism, Pan Africanism, and just like it legitimizes you as a person, and said
yeah,
so yeah. So you're not just walking up to people being, well, I'm just kind of a dark skinned white person. No, no, I'm my own person. I have a legacy. I have ancestors. We have history. We have a history. We have great things that we've done. We've so many great things that we've built, and it's almost overwhelming. Once you look and everything that you're missing, it's overwhelming and also kind of depressing because you think about all the things that you've missed
Yep.
and all the things that could have been, and then it gets into, well, am I good enough as a black person? Am I worthy of even calling myself a black person? See, it kind of switches there.
Yeah.
Am I too white? Can I even do this? Can I even reverse the whitewashing? And then you're like, oh, I must not be black enough.
Yeah. Oh my
It's
God.
issue after issue after issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, but once you learn, once you get proud of your culture, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, it is amazing is an understatement.
Yeah.
Um, Especially when you know who you are and where you come from, not just from your direct, parents and your biological family, but where you come from as a people,
Yes.
and to know what all that led up to Corey Quinn becoming Corey Quinn. Do you know the circumstances behind why you were even placed for adoption?
Okay. So at one point, I had the papers on my biological parents. I was too immature and I lost them. Don't ask me how I did it, but I lost the papers, and now I have to go through a whole thing in Michigan to try and get the papers again, and it's a headache. But
Yeah.
I think it said, and I don't necessarily trust the papers, but it said that they had issues with drugs, and they had get this, 7 kids, and they were all taken away. The first one passed away from an accidental aspirin overdose, I guess, from my biological mother, and the rest were all taken away. Um, I was fortunate enough to actually reunite with 3 of my biological siblings, and we were all adopted away, which
Mm,
which makes me wonder how. I know there's more to this story that I don't know, and
of
there's
course.
there's got to be. I mean, a woman just doesn't, okay, have drug issues and then just have 7 children and just give them all away. There's got to be a lot to her story. There's got to be something that happened, and
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the story of why. And I was taken away at birth, so I technically never really was even held. I don't think by my biological mom. And yeah.
I smile when you say that because I was just in conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and they asked me how long was I in the care of my biological mother, and I said I wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she ever held me. I just know that she left me in the hospital, you know, for just a little more than a week, at which time my adoptive parents picked me up. And she also suffered from drug use. No idea about the man, like I told you a moment ago, no idea about the man who she conceived me with. But it's just one of those things where even though I met her, she passed away 3 years ago, certain questions and certain topics I could tell had to remain
Yeah.
off topic because
Right.
she wasn't even comfortable discussing um, a number of things, and I could tell when asked when she was triggered, and so a lot of questions are still unknown, still unanswered, and a lot of things she took with her to the grave, and it just bugs me out because I get that she had a drug addiction, and being the fourth child after the second one passed away. I'm not sure if the second one passed away while she was using drugs or if the second one passed away led her to drugs. Still don't know. But that drug addiction is why they knew, either she knew or the state knew I couldn't remain in her custody. And so, and like I said a moment ago, still searching for biological siblings from, one from her and whatever is on my paternal side. So when you know that, how does that change? Like, did you ever think, okay, well, now that I know, I still want to meet my biological parents and go looking for them. Was that ever a thing for you, or did you just say, I'm fine?
It's kind of, sometimes I'll get into depressing states. Like sometimes I'll just Google, like I know their names. Sometimes I'll just Google
Mhm.
them even though I know I can't find them. But it's just like I'm
Okay.
having like a kind of like a mini meltdown because uh I do want to know, but I don't want to know. I'm scared, but I want to know what they look like. I want to know what their personality is like, but I'm afraid of rejection. So it's like I do want to know and I don't. I wanted to bring up something about the whole state and the child protective and the parents and everything.
Mhm.
Um, there is unjust bias with that because I, black families are targeted more than white families when it comes to CPS and stuff like that.
Yep.
I've heard of stories of white families just doing god awful things with children, but yet the CPS, if you sneeze wrong or if your house is slightly dirty, I've heard of black children being taken away. So
Mhm.
just take something to take into account. And the reason I
Mhm.
say that is if my biological parents were able to get the help that they deserved in America, the psychological help, I
Yeah.
would have much preferred that, and I would have much preferred being with them and having them healthy. But the medical apartheid, the psychiatric industry, everything is kind of targeting black families, and is I don't know, it's rough. So there's many layers to this. I think there's
You
many
took the
layers.
words right out of my mouth. So many layers
Yeah,
that it's almost hard to really get down to the root
yeah,
of how, the impact that it's had on you,
yeah,
the impact that it's had on your family,
yeah,
and why society deems it necessary to, without question, snatch a black child from their biological
yeah.
family
Exactly. Yeah,
opposed to the other races
yeah,
or nationalities. So I get what you're saying wholeheartedly. It's sad because it's almost like, are we not deserving enough to know who we come from? I mean, the fact that there are two people out there who conceived Corey Quinn and you have no knowledge of who they are, I just find that it's unfathomable because I don't understand why, if you're going to make adoption a thing, why not give this child the right to, as an adult, know who and where he comes from?
yeah. Exactly.
It's very unnerving.
Exactly. And that has it's connected because in slavery we families would be torn apart all the time and
Yeah.
people would be auctioned and stuff like that. And I think it has a lot to do with a connection to that. Families are broken apart in black communities a lot, and it's damaging. That I think some of it is done on purpose. Not everything, but I think some of it is done on purpose, just to keep the black family is just torn apart. I think that's what I think personally. But
I mean, it's true because even when you think about the fact that, uh, say for instance, mom says, "Oh, I'm keeping my child,"
yeah,
but dad for some reason has had it and he's gone. Even though that child has remained in the care of their biological mother, where's dad? So there are so many cases of a child remaining in the care of their biological family, still with questions about who they fully
yeah.
are.
Oh sure,
Because okay,
oh
mom
sure.
has me, but where's dad and who is dad? Still questions unknown. Why? Because we know how easy it was to tear apart the African American family
Yeah.
and the impact that it will have, and how the child will suffer trauma and so many other emotional, so many emotional things that it's not even a thought. So when you talk about therapy, and I say all the time, therapy is deemed as, oh, you're crazy in the African American community.
Oh yeah.
So if you tell someone, oh, I'm going through therapy because of X, Y, and then X, Y, and Z, you're then, oh, Jasmine is crazy. She's thinking about going through therapy. No, I just want to heal and know how to manage my emotions as I deal with this,
Exactly.
as I'm now 45 years old, still seeking my biological family. So, in your adoption, you learned that music did what for you?
Um, it all started. My parents would kind of drink tea in just had me play on the piano, uh, and I realized that I can play songs, sad songs, angry songs, and it goes right to my feelings as an adoptee. Even though I didn't necessarily know it, that how
Yeah.
much it would help me, but yeah, I would take all my issues because I couldn't necessarily ask or talk to the rest of my adoptive family about what I was going through because I'm just supposed to be grateful, and so I would just stop and I would just take it to the keys and
Mm,
I would write songs and sad songs, happy songs, depressing songs. But I'm like, hey, I feel better after doing this. You
mm,
know, I feel I'm not as. And then I would do more and more and more, and then the piano became my therapist. Unfortunately, the piano started doing what my adoptive parents actually were kind of supposed to be doing, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna try and be a lawyer because even when experiencing some racism or a lot of racism, I felt like I had to be a lawyer to prove it to my adoptive parents. This is racism. Now here are the reasons why. Here are my witnesses. Here's the testimony. Here's the or because they'll just say you're being too sensitive. I
yeah.
had to be a lawyer, and that was just it was too taxing. So I would just take it to the piano. And yeah, and if it weren't, I'm gonna be. I tell everyone this. If it weren't for the piano, I'd probably either be dead or in jail because you can only bury emotion so much, bury anger so much. You have to have a release. Think about
Have to.
yep. Think about a valve that's just so much pressure.
Yep.
It's and you have to have a
Yep.
way to. You can't just be smile and be grateful because you'll smile and then you'll start choking someone. you know.
Yep. Exactly.
Seriously, yeah. You have to have
Yeah.
and I think that's a really constructive release because you only have it's going to come out. You don't have a choice
It-
about that. You could either be,
exactly.
it could either be constructive and beautiful in art, or it could either be violent or whatever. So,
Yep. And that's what led me to speaking with you, just letting it out,
oh
and
sure,
like you said, it can either have it has its positives and it has its negatives. So how am I going to release this? And like you said, you found it in the keys. So
exactly.
good for you.
Right.
How old were you when you started playing the piano?
Well, I I started banging on the piano with my fists at like 5 years old. I don't technically call that playing, but I played my first chord at 6 years old.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. And then I was given lessons, and then I just started building from then on, and started making my own songs. So yeah, around 6 years old, and
And it
I'm very thankful for that because
so am I.
yeah, yeah,
So
because
am I. I mean, even for you, I'm thankful for that because you had so many other options and so many other ways
Lord,
that you could have left that out.
yeah,
By the time you got 12, 14
yeah.
years old, it could have been a completely different
Well,
story.
here's the thing. There were times that I actually have acted out. Around like
Yes.
I think 5 years old, I think I lit the dining room tablecloth on fire, and I don't even. I just felt like I was. I don't know why I did it. I just did. And now as an adult, I know why I did it. Just kind of acting out with all the trauma and everything. And
Yeah.
there were times that I did act out, but it never got to a point of violence. It never got to a point of where the law had to be involved. And I'm definitely thankful for that. Um, uh, and I want to bring up to the point, us adoptees, we're really good people pleasers. I don't know if you agree. You probably do
Yeah.
agree. We're I don't want to just say really good. We're master people
Yeah.
pleasers, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very expensive emotionally. We can't be that all the time. Like I mentioned,
Expensive is the word. Expensive is the word.
exactly, and like I said, the real you is going to come out, and it's like a pressure valve. And so if you don't have like a constructive way to let it out, uh, yeah, you will act out. But yeah, I was telling another adoptee if adoptees actually decided to get into politics, we'd be very good because we are already masters of politics. Think about it, we are
I
at a young
agree.
age.
I agree 100% with that because for one, I don't like politics.
Yeah,
That's one. I don't like it. But as I get older and I realize how politics control our
yeah,
lives,
really do.
our economy,
Yep.
our, socioeconomic, so many things. It's kind of like I have so many thoughts and things that can be said on so many topics. And like you said, with you saying that that can be connected to me being an adoptee, I would have never thought that before. But that's actually a good point because we deal with so much.
Exactly. And we're good politicians. We're also good chameleons. We can fit into a lot of situations.
Yep.
I think we can feel social cues a lot stronger. We know how to just move into different groups because we know how to. And sometimes that can be bad for us because we lose a little bit of our true selves when we can't just be ourselves.
Yeah.
I think maybe as children we should have worked more on balancing that. There has to be times where we're irrational, when we're just angry and we just have a fit because we're human. We should have those times.
Yeah.
Every other human every other human is allowed to have those, and
Yeah.
we're no different. So we should be allowed to be angry just because we're angry, sad
Yeah.
and we don't have to always have a reason to explain it. Just
We
because.
shouldn't.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
And we don't have to feel a need to always explain it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I know I get down on myself when I cry, when I get sad. I feel like I'm being weak, and I realize therapy is learning how to be vulnerable. That's so important. We
Yes.
have to.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to. That's the only way you're gonna heal, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel
You
good at
know,
all.
one of the things that I tell my kids is that our body is made to create tears for a reason.
Mhm.
Let it out.
Yeah,
And, especially as a black man, oh my God, how dare I cry?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
better not.
yeah,
I'm not going to look like a punk.
yeah.
But your body is just as human as mine or anyone else's. So it is very important that you let out those emotions through tears.
Oh,
If whether you are alone or in the presence of somebody else, it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that's one of the things, not just dealing with adoption, but in, humanity,
yes.
people don't like to be vulnerable. I think this is one of the things that is just, it almost hurts us more to hold that in and not be vulnerable in the moment
Yeah,
because you're just holding it all in.
yeah.
And like you said, when that pressure builds up,
And,
somebody's going to cry.
and not only that, I'm just learning now that stress of that pressure, if you don't let it out, you'll start to have physical issues like high blood pressure, stomach
Yep,
issues. It's what's the
yep,
word I'm looking for? It's stress. It's the stress-induced trauma or something, but it has something to do with the body and
yep,
this even disease stuff like that. So if you
yep.
keep all that in, it'll manifest into different illnesses. Um,
I haven't read this book, but I've heard about it so many times, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
That's what that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. And I think us as adoptees, we hold a lot of our trauma here in the neck, right here.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't hold up. I can't even believe you just said that. Okay, because I know someone who's a therapist, and I had this conversation, and I said a few months ago, and I was like, "Yeah, my neck is bothering me," and she goes, "You know what I'm gonna say?" And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "The body keeps the score." And this
Yeah,
is just me recently coming out talking about my adoption, creating this platform. And she was like, "The body keeps the score."
definitely.
She said, "You're dealing with your neck is bothering you because you're dealing with the adoption
Mm-hmm.
and the effects that it has on you." She was like, "And your body is going to tell you." And when I tell you, it was right in my neck.
Uh-huh.
So it's so funny that you would say that because, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who knew?
You ever notice yourself doing this sometimes? Because a lot of adoptees, and they won't even realize it. So now, like, if I remember, I'll force myself to drop my shoulders. I think I know what that's about. We spend so much time walking on eggshells as children. Think about walking on eggshells like that. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to be ungrateful. But now, as an
Hmm.
adult, this is normal. This,
Yep.
and it's really not normal. So all this stress right here, we have to remember to drop our shoulders. And
Not only is it not
yeah,
normal, but Corey, let me tell you something. When I find myself doing that very position, You know, when I find myself doing that, is the time that I'm supposed to be relaxed the most in my sleep.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
In my sleep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can, I'm trying to keep my heat in,
Yeah.
and I find myself like this so much to the point where I have to tell myself, you're doing it again,
Yep.
at which point I'll just go ahead and release.
It's
But
subconscious. Yep. It's subconscious now. Yep. Yep.
yeah, but not only I'll catch myself, I'll release myself, but just a short while later, I'll notice that it happens again. So it's so weird that you said that
Oh,
because
yeah.
that is absolutely a thing.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. And one thing that I suggest, which I have a tough time doing, is hugging ourselves. Now, I hate to hug myself. I hate to pat myself on the back. I hate to say good job, Corey, because I always feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I don't deserve to be congratulated. So every now and then, no matter how, this doesn't feel good to me right here, but it's so
Yeah,
beneficial. Hug ourselves
yeah,
whenever we do something right. Just pat ourselves in the back. Maybe take ourselves for like some ice cream sometime. Really, just getting the validation that I think a lot of us adoptees didn't get from our adoptive parents, or at least the kind that we need. I think that's very important for us to hug ourselves and pat ourselves in the
yeah,
back and stuff like that, and put our shoulders down, because we are always being that persona, that the agreeable persona. And the
yeah.
agreeable persona is always okay, say the right thing, okay, be grateful, but we never get to ah
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because then we're vulnerable and we'll be like,
Right,
I might make a
right.
mistake, you know. So,
I think what's funny about you saying that is the fact that, with my kids, I sometimes I'll get compliments. Oh my God, the kids are so this and they're so that, they're so good. And then I'll have moments with my husband and I'll say, I don't think I know what I'm doing as a mom. Like I just, keep
yeah,
in mind, my kids aren't even babies anymore. But and I'll tell them, I'm like, I don't think I know what I'm doing. So it's funny because so many other people can see something that I don't see.
yeah, yeah,
And regardless of what compliments I get, oh my God, good job, mom, you're doing such a great job.
yeah.
I
It's
don't think
tough.
I know what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
it's
Yeah,
it's tough to take a compliment. It's tough to, and you got to you have to train yourself to do that. You have to train yourself to be like, okay, as a mom, I did do a good job. I
yeah,
am doing. I have great kids. I raise great kids. That's tough. That's
that
tough.
takes a lot. Yeah,
We'd rather try and find something that we're doing wrong, because
yeah, exactly.
in a weird way that's comforting in a weird way because we're used to it.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
yeah,
weird. We got so many issues, but yeah, it's part of the healing for just us to accept the compliment, pat ourselves in the back, and say, okay, I did do good.
yeah.
I'm not gonna beat myself up today because we beat ourselves up a lot.
That takes a lot to do to get to the point where you can actually compliment yourself and take credit for doing something right and doing something, good. That takes a lot. And I don't know why, but I guess that's one of those things that adoptees deal with because I mean, most adoptees feel like, oh, it's my fault that my parents didn't want me. So when you have that embedded in your psyche, you will likely grow up thinking, oh, I'm the I'm the reason for this. I'm the reason this didn't go well. This is all my fault and all of those things. When in fact, you just haven't dealt with the trauma behind your
Exactly.
emotion.
Exactly.
I mean, the trauma behind your adoption. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
So, Corey, let's go back to you finding, you said three of your siblings, right? Have you remained in contact with them?
The younger sibling was kind of rough. I feel like he resents me. It wasn't necessarily a good reunion. I just because maybe I thought he wasn't ready for a brother yet, and I felt like I was came on a little too strong. So it was, I want to call that a failed reunion. I mean, we're still in
Mhm.
contact now, but we're not. We don't have a relationship like I'd like us to. Uh,
Yeah.
but I also met my older sister and older biological brother, and they were more mature, and I think it felt like we had a better reunion. I met them around year 2000, and actually brought the younger brother to meet them, and all four of us met, and which is really weird. We all look like each other. We all have the big foreheads and everything, with the family trait, and it's weird
Right.
because you've never had a family trait before. You've never looked like anybody. You've always been different, and so it's a really weird thing. But yeah, so I ended up meeting them, and I'm still in contact with them now on Facebook. We're not as close as I'd like us to be, but who knows for the future.
Mhm. What about the relationship with your adoptive family? What's that like now?
I don't have one. I live with my adopted sister right now, but I'm still that persona. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to get no contact. To be honest, um, there's so much I don't feel like we have enough time for me to get into everything I'd like to, but yeah, it's just sometimes they feel like they choose the narrative over me, and I don't feel
Of
like.
course.
Sometimes I feel like they resented my adoption and stuff like that, and it's just a lot of them are narcissistic, and it's the best. Sometimes the best thing to do with a narcissist is just to cut off, and because it's very traumatizing. I wanted to have a real relationship. I wanted it, but I felt like I was doing 75%, 80% of the reaching, and I wasn't getting
Yeah.
that reciprocal, and that's very taxing emotionally. So I felt like
Yeah.
I was being emotionally neglected and just be seen and not heard. So as an adult, I had to put on my big boy pants and say, you know what, this is too much trauma. This is too much taxing me on my emotional. So I got to work on just no contact and just living my life. Unfortunately, I would have wanted.
So you're
I would have wanted different, but
so you're ready to completely detach yourself
yes.
with your adoptive family,
Not
sister, mom,
yeah,
everyone.
it's necessary. It's necessary for me to be the best person I can be, but it's tough. It's really tough for me because there's still fear and there's still things there's still bad things that I'm comfortable with. Sometimes you get comfortable with things that are not great for you, and I'm still working on. I think it's called getting out of the fog, so to speak. Well,
Yeah.
I'm out of the fog. I'm confused about that term. Like mentally, I'm out of the fog, but like I'm not as independent as I'd like to be. And
Yeah.
I feel as soon as I get that, then my life will start to soar.
I think that's what the whole fog term is about.
Okay.
I mean, actually dealing with like the way I understand the term the fog is just not facing and dealing with your adoption and just still being in a space where you can people please and just be what everyone else wants you to be. But once you come out of that fog, once you're released from that, you're going to see yourself, your life, your family completely different. And that's how I understand the term the fog.
I think you're right.
Because so
Yep.
yeah, because so many of us are caught up in it. I didn't know what that term even meant. I hadn't even heard it growing up. But now that I hear it so often now amongst the other adoptees, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Because, like I said in the beginning, I never even dealt with my adoption. I never even talked about my adoption because I was in that fog, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Exactly. And the universe is waiting for me to move on. It's, I just like I know I should. It's really tough, and I know psychologically it'd be better for me. Spiritually, it'd be better for me. I'm just afraid to make that leap because we get comfortable with what we know, and sometimes the unknown is just so scary. Even though it'll probably be better for us, making that
Yeah.
leap is tough. But I'm willing. I'm willing, and I'm bit by bit I'm taking those steps. I feel I am.
Yeah. Well, good for you. When you say that the unknown is scary, and it is, the unknown is scary, not just to adoptees, it's a very scary thing amongst people in general
Sure.
to walk into something that you are unaware of. Do you think that unknown of your biological parents is the thing that's keeping you from really searching? Because I know the moment I found out my biological mother's first name, I went straight to the internet. I called her. It was just kind of like, I'm 30 years old, I need to know. So let's talk. And I think for me, I didn't hold the fear, but she did because she told me that I had the wrong number. But it's that unknown. Do you think it's that unknown when you say you're afraid of the rejection? You really believe that you'll face rejection if you reached out to them?
Possibly. Well, I was kind of that way with my brother. Like as soon as I found out his name, I called him like right away. Like my younger brother. But I hope I'm not running out of battery. No, I'm good. Um, it won't destroy me if I get rejected by them, but it might. I don't know what's going to do to me subconsciously.
Yeah.
As much as we think about our biological parents, as much as we wanted them to just embrace us, I'm a pretty tough guy emotionally. We are all pretty tough. Adoptees are very
Yeah.
tough emotionally, but subconsciously, I don't know what it'll do to me. Um, but I'm prepared. I'm prepared that it could be a possibility. I think I can survive it, but I'm still scared about it.
You can, and you being afraid is a normal, very normal, feeling.
Yeah,
I want to share what it was like when I met my biological mother. When I called her, because I was 30, I always knew her last name, but when I called her, I had just learned her first name. My mom pulled out the adoption papers and scratched off some white out from like some of the medical records or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's her name. I immediately went to the internet. I called her for about 2 days before I reached her. And she was like, she basically told me I had the wrong number. So I said, okay. So a few months later, I relocated from New York to Atlanta. I was talking to another adoptee who said, yeah, a phone call for them out the blue is just too much. They can't deal with it. He told me to write her a letter.
yeah, yeah.
So I did. She responded to that letter. It blew my mind. She called me because I put my number in the letter. She called me. She said, hi, Jasmine. This is so and so. I received your letter and I'm going to put a letter in the mail for you tomorrow. Blew my mind. So that was 2010. She actually flew to Atlanta to meet me in 2011.
Oh,
I remember my first thought when I saw her coming up the escalator in the airport. I was with my husband, and my first thought was, she lived a hard life. That was my first thought. Um, but then I got to see, our personality traits and our personality similarities and things like that. And I was like, wow, it wasn't an emotional reunion by any means. Like you said, we're pretty tough
yeah,
emotionally,
yeah,
but it wasn't an emotional reunion. It was more like, oh, what up?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that sort of thing. And I don't even, now that I'm saying that, I don't even know if that's normal, because there were no tears or anything. I was like, yeah, how was your flight? We spoke like that. And, she spoke very candidly about her flight, and it was like nothing.
Yeah.
So, I wonder, now that I'm talking about it, I wonder what that had to do. Like, why was it one of those
Well,
things where I never cried?
you know what I think it is? I think the adult in you, that's what was happening with the adult in you. But I think your inner child was crying and saying, I finally met, your inner child was doing something different. Of course, the
Yeah,
adult is going to protect the inner child, be like, oh, how was your flight and everything.
right.
Let's keep the emotion level and everything. I don't want to show too much emotion. I don't want to cry all over you. But I think the inner child
Yeah,
is doing something different.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
It's really one of those things because while I had no emotional reaction to meeting her, I wonder if, in fact, if I ever get to meet my biological father, if that encounter will be different. No, no idea.
I think you got. I think the first we don't give ourselves permission to have an emotional encounter. I think as
Yeah,
an adult, we wouldn't allow ourselves to, even if we wanted to, just because we're so wary on rejection because we get taken away from our parents at first, and so we have to allow ourselves to be gushy and emotional and crying and stuff like that. But to get that permission, you gotta go
yeah.
through a lot of psychological red tape and stuff like that. It's very hard to get that permission.
A whole lot,
Yeah,
a whole lot. Were you ever upset with anyone about your adoption story, with why you were taken, why you were placed, whatever? Were you ever upset about your adoption?
I I take I take my anger out on um I take my anger out on kind of like the dominant white society. I'll make I take my anger out on like I get extremely pro black. That's how I handle my anger. I get extremely pro black, and even sometimes I'll get like how do I say it? Like yeah, I do get angry, and I'll make like angry songs and stuff like that. In fact, I get it's tough because sometimes it's even hard for me to access that anger. Like I've been indifferent or supposedly indifferent for so long. Now I gotta train myself to be angry. It's weird.
Mm, that is weird. I've never heard anyone say that
No, it
before.
is. No, cause like when I acted out, when I told you before, when I acted out, like lighting the dining room tablecloth on fire, it's just my body just did. I didn't even feel like I even felt it. My body just did. And
Mm,
even taking anger out on the piano was just a little bit, just a little bit. The
yeah.
actual full brunt of my anger has never actually been released. It's been bit by bit, both through the piano and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm actually, as a person, I'm extremely angry. I'm extremely angry, and it sometimes you ever like yell at someone that they don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it'll
Of
come
course.
out in, yeah, it'll come out in different ways. But to
Mm-hmm.
actually let that anger out consciously, I'm still training myself how to do that because I got to give myself permission. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still worried about what other people will think. I shouldn't be angry. I should be grateful. You know the story. So
Right, exactly. I mean, somebody loved you,
yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah, yeah,
right? Oh my God, they loved you so much.
yeah.
They did
You're
this.
so blessed to have someone love it.
You're, you're so blessed. I mean, and it's like the more I hear that from adoptees, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Because what you have is, I heard this line in a movie before, and I've said it before, but I heard this line in a movie: when a child or when a person suffers trauma, it is at that age that they stop growing. And so when you think about the maternal separation from a baby and their biological mother, that is traumatic.
Yes.
But a baby is not able to articulate those
Yes.
feelings and
Yes.
those thoughts. So it becomes tucked trauma. It's pre-verbal, it's tucked.
Hmm.
And now this baby who suffered something traumatic is just going through life, not even dealing with the trauma that they experienced at birth or 3 months or 5 months or 6 months, what have you. But they're just going through life and they're dealing with something so heavy. Where is that release? Where is that for that baby?
Have you
Because
read
that adult is still that baby.
Have you read the Primal Wound?
I have it in my bag. I haven't read it. I haven't started reading it yet. I
I
started reading it, but I haven't
We're
gotten
gonna say
into it.
yeah. I'm taking. I have it too. I'm like on page like 30. It's so tough to read, but it's so necessary. Um,
Mm,
just learning how important the bond, even before birth, of the mother and the child, and just psychologically the benefits of being held by the mother, being breastfed, even just the
right.
even just breastfeeding is good for your immune system. It's good
Mhm.
for relationship building. There's so much to it that just society just glosses over, and I feel that's just it's an injustice. It's another injustice. Um, and the normal baby, I forgot what it was. I'm reading the page, but I think it's a certain amount of days that it has to stay with the mother before it can develop its own psyche or something like that. I have to reread it. It's But there's a lot that gets to it that no one talks about. The the media doesn't talk about it. The adoption industry doesn't talk about it.
It's so taboo. Yeah.
It is. But that's why we're 40, 41, and then 45. That's why we're still struggling with issues because
Yeah.
people refuse to look at that. Even though you don't look at it, it's not going to go away.
Right. And you know what I find? The adopted chameleon, Lori Gerald on Instagram, she's amazing. She made a point to me. She said even when a dog has puppies, they are not able to remove those puppies from the care of their mom for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For 6 weeks. But in the case of a human being, you can snatch that baby and replace them at day two, at day three. And it's kind of like when you think about it that way, I'm like, oh, that's a real thing. And as a mother who carried my children, I have created such a bond with them.
Yeah.
They are my absolute everything.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not having that relationship with the human beings that I carried, You know what I'm saying?
Of course,
So
because the mother, reading it, the mother and the child are one for so long. They're literally one, and then when you come out into this world, you have to ease into it. You can't just be taken away. And if you get taken away, there's that hole in you. And there's that part of you that's missing, and you don't know who you are, and it's like a big gaping wound. It's the primal wound, yeah, primal wound.
when
It's,
you think about the fact that a mother carries a child for 9 to 10 months, what have you,
mm,
and then while that child is in the womb, that child learns the voice of their mother.
yep, yep.
You know, that child has a biological connection to this woman.
The sound of the
And then
heartbeat, yeah, yep, yep,
the heartbeat, all of that. And to think that at birth, this mother can birth this child, and 2, 3, 4 days later, this child loses that entire connection. This, not this child, this infant,
yeah,
this brand new human being,
right,
this baby completely loses that connection with the one human being they knew at the time of, from the time of conception.
exactly, exactly. And that's safety, that's security, that's dealing with the world through a feeling of security that gets taken away. Um, okay, so I'm never going to love anyone again because that might happen again. But
Yeah.
there's this uh, adoptee therapist named Joe Soul. That says that we have to tell ourselves that that can never happen again. It can't. It can't. That can only happen once, and
Mm.
that's supposed to kind of help us through it, because we feel that okay, we can get abandoned again.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'll probably always feel like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
I'll have to look into that because I don't know. At any given time, I can. I'll always feel like, oh, at any given time, my husband can wake up and say, I don't want this marriage anymore.
right, right, right,
At any
right.
given time, he can do that. And while we have a good, healthy marriage, my thought is always going to be, he can change that at any time, at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, yeah,
What's stopping him
yeah.
from changing that when, I was already abandoned?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What's stopping him from, oh my,
And
this is why I love these conversations, because I learn something new from other adoptees like yourself. And I always hope that they learn something from me and the conversations that we have, because not only do we, because we share that commonality doesn't mean that we deal with it all the same.
sure.
You chose to play the piano. Um, I still don't know how I've really chosen to deal with my adoption, and that's, I think, speaking with other adoptees, it's so helpful because I learn something new each and every time. And it's so, so helpful because now I can, from this conversation, I reflect and be like, you know what, Corey was the one who said that, just like I made mention of
Oh yeah.
Lorraine Gerald, the adopted chameleon a moment ago. I learned something from her. And to think that a dog cannot be separated from its puppies
Yeah.
until 6 weeks,
Yeah.
6 weeks, but a mother doesn't have that time. A human being doesn't have that time. It is complete asinine to me, and it will always
Yeah.
be like that.
It's damaging. It's wrong. No matter how good the intention of the adoptive mother, the adoptive mother just doesn't feel the same, doesn't smell the same. It's just you are not my biological mother, even though you mean well. And
Right.
yeah, the infinite is extremely smart, smarter than gives credit for. Um,
Yep.
Learning and everything, taking everything in, and they know when someone. I hate to say it like this, but kind of an imposter.
hmm One of the things that shocked me about meeting my biological mother was to see just how intelligent she was. We have this perception that, oh, smart people will never try drugs.
Yeah,
Extremely intelligent, very articulate,
yeah,
can get her thoughts across, very street savvy, but her intelligence is what the main thing was for me, Corey, that made me want to ask so many questions. But again, when I realized um, what topics she was just going to toss to the side, I kept myself in the safe place
yeah.
so that I wouldn't,
Good.
get too far with her. But an intelligent woman.
Yeah. Well, that's because the narrative is brutal. The narrative wants to seem like Your parents are this savage drug user party, just reckless, and you were saved. And no, no.
Yes.
People have issues, but they're smart people. They're good people. They go through rough times, and the narrative becomes so much of a bully in itself. So it's so important that it one, it makes you think that your biological parents were nothing, and
Yep.
they weren't smart. They weren't, and and that's not the case.
That's that's the narrative.
Yeah.
That is the narrative. Oh my God, Corey. So I know we didn't touch on everything today, but I'm going to ask you to come back for part two. We're going to have to talk some more
Love
about
to.
this.
I'd love to.
And by that time, I would have gotten into primal wound, and we can discuss some more of that because I don't want to take up your evening. When we get into these conversations, we can talk for a full 5, 6, 7 hours,
Easily.
because there's so much to unpack when we talk about adoption. But I thank you.
Oh, I thank you. I needed this. I really
Yeah,
needed this.
that's the thing. We all do, and we don't realize it. But I thank you so much. And when time permits, I'm going to hit you up, and I'm going to say, Corey, are you ready? We have more to discuss, and I hope you are able to share another moment with me.
Looking forward to it.
Corey, what's your Instagram handle?
Um, at Corey Imperfect, COREYIM, and then perfect. So it's weird. It's like it's Corey I'm perfect, but it's also Corey Imperfect.
Imperfect, right?
So.
Perfect. Perfect. So,
Yeah.
because in a sense, that's what we are. We are perfectly imperfect, and made in God's image. And so,
And if you
you
want to
know,
if you want to hear some of my art, go to CoreyGoldwaves.bandcamp.com, and I have a lot of my adoption related art there. You can kind of listen, and I do a lot of jazz piano, some classical stuff like that. And so if you have a moment, just take a listen.
absolutely. So, for those of you who are watching, this gentleman just shared a lot with us, and you can follow him on Instagram and check out his website because there's so much more. Like he said, there's so many layers to unpack, and the more we talk about it, the more therapeutic it is, the more we find healing in each other's story, and just finding that community where we can be there for each other. And so, I am forever grateful for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, Paul.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay.